On the morning of August 5th, 2010, 33 men descended nearly half a mile beneath the Earth's surface in the Atacama Desert of northern Chile. For them, it was just another shift in the San Jose copper and gold mine. The work was dangerous, yes, but it was routine. The men were miners. They'd been underground before, chipping away at hard rock, sweating in the dark tunnels, trusting that the supports overhead would hold. But that day, in one violent instant, everything changed. At 2 p.m, the mountain roared. A massive slab of rock, estimated to weigh 700,000 tons, collapsed inside the mine. The walls shook, dust filled the air, and passageways crumbled. The men scrambled for safety as the tunnels collapsed around them. When the dust settled, they realized the horrifying truth. They were trapped, buried alive, 2,300 feet underground, with no way out. Panic spread quickly. The collapse had sealed all the exit routes. Communications were destroyed. The men had limited light and only the food they carried for a day's work. Above ground, the mine owners and families had no idea if anyone had survived. For the miners below, the nightmare was only just beginning. The 33 gathered in a refuge chamber carved into the rock, a small room meant to be the safe haven. It was about the size of a living room, stiflingly hot, with air thick from the dust. Supplies inside were scarce: a few cans of tuna, some milk, small packages of biscuits, enough to feed maybe a handful of men for a couple of days, not 33 men for weeks. Their leader underground was Louis Azua, the shift foreman. Calm and collected, he immediately began rationing. They divided the food into portions so small they could barely be called meals. A spoonful of tuna, a biscuit, a sip of milk every other day. They drank water that seeped from the rocks, carefully collecting it in plastic containers. They set up a strict schedule to conserve energy, rotating between rest, work, and prayer. But the psychological toll was crushing. They were sealed under almost half a mile of solid rock, with no light, no communication, and no guarantee that anyone even knew they were alive. For 17 days, they endured in silence, growing thinner, weaker, and increasingly desperate. Above ground, rescue operations began immediately. Families gathered at the mine entrance, demanding answers. Engineers and government officials worked day and night to drill exploratory holes into the mountain, hoping to find survivors. The work was slow, the mountain was unstable, and every drill risked triggering another collapse. Hope began to fade. And then, on August 22nd, 17 days after the collapse, one of the drills broke through into the refuge chamber. The miners, weak but alive, banged on the drill with hammers to signal they were there. When the drill was called back to the surface, rescuers found a note attached, scrawled in red ink: "Estamos bien en el refugio los 33. We are well in the refuge, the 33. The world erupted in celebration. Against all odds, the 33 were alive. Families at the surface wept with joy. News cameras broadcast the message around the globe. But the nightmare was far from over. Finding them was one thing. Getting them out was another. The miners were still trapped 2,300 feet underground. The tunnel was too narrow for them to climb out. The rock above was unstable, and experts estimated it could take months, if it was even possible, to drill a rescue shaft wide enough for a man to pass through. The miners would have to endure for much longer. From that point on, the rescue mission became a global effort. 3 different drilling plans were launched simultaneously: Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. Engineers from Chile, the United States, Canada, and beyond sent equipment and expertise. NASA even advised on nutrition and psychological support, treating the miners like astronauts stranded in space. Meanwhile, supplies were lowered through narrow boreholes just wide enough to fit small capsules. Through these lifelines, food, water, medicine, lights, and letters from family were sent down. The miners devoured the food, their bodies skeletal after weeks of starvation. They read letters from their loved ones aloud, crying and laughing, clinging to hope. Underground, they organised themselves into a disciplined society. Azua continued to lead, assigning roles: cooks, sanitation workers, spiritual leaders. One miner became the barber, cutting hair to keep up morale. They exercised daily to stay strong enough for the rescue. They held prayer services, and in the darkness they built a fragile but resilient community determined to survive together. There were moments of tension. Some miners broke down emotionally, overwhelmed by the fear that they might not see their families again. Others struggled with the claustrophobic conditions, unable to handle the constant darkness and the weight of the mountain pressing above them. But each time the group came together, they reminded one another that survival depended on unity. Above ground, the world watched. Media from across the globe camped outside the mine. Families of the miners formed Camp Hope, a makeshift tent city at the mine's entrance, where they waited day and night for news. Politicians, celebrities, and religious leaders all weighed in. The plight of the 33 became an international story of endurance and faith. The drilling was excruciatingly slow. Plan A struggled against the hard rock. Plan C, the most ambitious, risked collapsing the mine. But Plan B, using a powerful T-130 drill from the United States, made steady progress. Day by day, it carved a rescue shaft down toward the trapped men. Every meter drilled was another step toward hope. During those long weeks, the miners sent videos to the surface. In them, they appeared thin but determined, often smiling to reassure their families. They sang songs, displayed the small space they inhabited, and even cracked jokes. But behind the smiles, the suffering was evident. Their faces were gaunt, their voices weak, and their movements slow. Yet they clung to hope. Finally, on October 9th, after more than 2 months, Plan B broke through to the refuge. The shaft was complete. It was just wide enough for a specially designed capsule nicknamed the Phoenix to be lowered down. Painted white, red and blue, the colours of the Chilean flag, the Phoenix was fitted with oxygen, communication and harnesses to lift each man to safety. On October 12th, the rescue began. The first miner chosen was Florencio Avalos, picked because he was young, healthy and calm under pressure. Families and cameras crowded around the rescue shaft, hearts pounding as the capsule descended into the earth. After a tense hour, the Phoenix emerged, carrying Florencio to the surface. He stepped out, blinking into the light, and hugged his son. The crowd erupted in cheers. The world watched live on television. The rescue had worked.
Engineers in Chile are reinforcing the rescue shaft that will finally bring the 33 trapped miners to freedom after more than 2 months deep underground.
And I want to express the hopes of the American people that the miners who are still trapped underground will be returned home safely as soon as possible.
One by one, over the next 24 hours, the Phoenix carried the miners up. Each man emerged to a hero's welcome. Hugs, tears, songs, prayers. Some dropped to their knees to kiss the ground, others waved Chilean flags. When Mario Sepulveda, the second miner, surfaced, he handed out rocks from the mine as souvenirs, joking with the rescuers to keep spirits light. The rescues continued through the night and into the next day. Doctors were ready to treat the men immediately, checking for infections, dehydration, and psychological trauma. But against all expectations, all 33 were alive, alert, and remarkably healthy given what they had endured. Finally, after 69 days underground, Luis Azua, the foreman who had held the group together, was the last to surface. As he stepped out of the capsule, he saluted, embraced Chile's president, and declared the mission a success. The crowd wept and cheered. All 33 had survived. Not one life was lost. The rescue was hailed as a miracle. It was broadcast live to over 1 billion people worldwide. The miners became national heroes, symbols of resilience and hope. Their story inspired books, documentaries, and in 2015, a Hollywood film titled The 33, starring Antonio Banderas. But beyond the fame and celebration, their ordeal revealed the raw power of human endurance. For 17 days, they'd lived on crumbs and sips of water, waiting in the dark, unsure if anyone would ever find them. For 69 days, they'd fought despair, hunger, and fear, relying on each other to stay alive. And when the Phoenix lifted them out of the earth, it wasn't just a rescue, it was proof of what people can survive, of what can be achieved when the world comes together. The San Jose mine never reopened. It remained a scar in the Atacama Desert, a reminder of the day 33 men were buried alive. But it also stood as a symbol of hope, a testament to the human spirit, and a story that shocked and inspired the world.